Okay, we are live. Oh, we just need to get into the actual discussion portion, right?
Right. We are gathered to negotiate between Baxter and Union 190. Is that right? Local
Yep.
190.
Local 190.
Let's get it on.
Okay. So, we've met with our teams kind of privately, and we've discussed our strategy.
So, do we want to? Does somebody want to summarize kind of the history of what's happening? So we've got Baxter, who's a meat packing facility with a long history of working with Local 190 Union, and they have done a round of negotiations in 1979, and so now it's 1978. So we are now negotiating for a new contract.
Yes. And I guess the relations have always been really good in the 70s since the union was established after that first strike, and had great working relationships with the president and then with his son, I guess, and then we're just trying to get through this recession in the 80s.
Right, and so after meeting with the industry, the industry consultants are informing us of a decline in the industry. So in preparations for that decline is, I guess, the major driver in having these negotiations.
And our contacts.
The union workers were always taken care of by the union.
Right, and our contract is expiring. So
yeah, and then unlike most situations where a company would just keep the contract in place and renegotiate as needed or re-sign, we're in kind of hot water right now with the issue of that it might just be scrapped altogether, and then we lose those portions of, well, the union would lose the 52-week notice, and then the workers' option to have first refusal, I think is what they were talking about. So yeah, so I think that the next part of this is just deciding, like actually negotiating between the two groups and talking about what the wage is going to be. So I think that they've given us like 20 minutes to discuss this, and I'm actually really curious because I didn't actually do the Baxter reading. I just read the union stuff, and it sounds like even though we're heading into a recession and the rest of the market is obviously doing poorly, a lot of bankruptcies being filed, a lot of unions are totally just they're not hiring them. By filing bankruptcy, they can lose the union and then rehire without it. That we're kind of the exception to the rule now with Local 190. But the thing is that because we've had such a great working relationship, Baxter isn't doing poorly. Productivity's up, utilization's up. We're making a profit. We're not behind, obviously. Compared to the rest of the industry, we are rock stars, but compared to, I guess, where we were, obviously we had higher aspirations. So we just have to decide, are we going to go with the trends and just call uncle because everybody else is calling uncle, or are we going to set an example for the rest of the states about how great working relationships with your union can get you out of these tough situations in this economy?
So from what I understand, that it was written into the contract that there's the Me Too clause, which essentially says that if wages were to change at 3 or more of the 5 major competitors in the industry that the union could pick the 3 companies that they wanted, and Baxter would take the average of those wages, and that's what the new pay would be. So currently, the wages that are being paid from by Baxter to the employees is $10.69 an hour. Right now, the lowest of our competitors is paying $6 to $7 an hour. The highest competitor is at $9 an hour. Right now, the average for the industry is $8.20. So we're essentially paying $2.49 above average right now.
So,
Right.
and the issue with that is that that clause was meant to be a second escalator clause to ensure that due to inflation and things like that, that we wouldn't be going backwards. Like, it wasn't meant to backtrack on wages, it was meant to protect wages. And obviously we didn't have any restrictive language in that to specify that specifically. Did you have anything else to add to that, Brian?
Nope, exactly that. That it was supposed to be so that we would keep up with our competitors as a wage increase, not necessarily go down. That's how the union is looking at it. So,
Unfortunately, from a legal standpoint, though, Baxter has every right to enforce it on the other end.
okay.
So,
And that makes sense to me. I feel like if the union was a little bit more thorough, they would have protected themselves with that. If they already had an escalator clause, why add a second one that wasn't as finite in language? I feel like that was a whoopsie on the part of us as the negotiator back in 1978. You don't want to reiterate yourself without crossing your T's and dotting your I's. But I think that the point holds true that when that clause was written, we were more of an average waged paying company, I guess, and we weren't leading the market, and now we are. And so over the past 5 years, it's been on a freeze, and nobody's gotten any raises, and now, on top of not giving a raise, we're going to backpedal and meet the competitors, even though their business is suffering because they don't have committed employees and the infrastructure that we have. On top of all of that, we're having people work harder, and then we want to pay them less money just because everybody else is doing it.
So there was a point, I think it was from the last round of negotiations, that there was an escrow account created so that cost of living increases that were set by the escalator clause would be deferred to an escrow account, and then that account was to be used to supplement the incomes of the workers who would experience a decline in their wages. But that was all due to the elimination of the incentive system, because before the last negotiation there was these insane incentives, so that if they performed each day, they hit their goal, anything above that they would get. I mean, people were basically getting 200% of their salary every year.
Well, and I also agree that's excessive. And obviously with the new factory, those types of goals are not necessarily necessary because we can hit the same amount that used to be a whole shift goal and now in 4 hours. But I think with my main concern is that the escrow account is only good for old hires, first of all, and then even with wage increases or decreases, it still pulls from that account. So even if we were to give a raise, they wouldn't see a dime of it. It would just take less money out of the escrow account. And so it's not really, in my mind, that's not good for the entire union. I mean, these new hires that they brought in are still part of the union, and they're not going to see, they're not part of the escrow account regardless, so it's not a benefit to them, and the people that do have the escrow account, it still balances out their pay, so they're not going to get more or less based on the wage. Is that how you understood it, Brian?
That's how I understand.
Yes, that's how I understood it. Absolutely. I was going to bring that up, but you did a good job of covering that. So
Keith and I, in our reading, and didn't talk anything about that that I caught as far as how that pay actually works. So from my understanding, it would be that so a new hire would get a pay raise, but the old hands that were at the old plant wouldn't see it because their wages are still supplemented by the escrow account. Is that correct?
Exactly. So anything that it would offset, unless it was drastic and the escrow account wasn't needed anymore, the escrow account would just give less. So it's kind of like an equalizer.
Gotcha. So the only way for them to actually get a raise is to actually double their current pay.
I'm not sure if doubling it would be necessary. It would just have to exceed the amount that the escrow is supplementing. And I don't know, it
Gotcha.
doesn't give a specific number on that. I think the main issue here is that here you have a factory, and you have people that have used this as a career for generations. They love where they work, they love the heritage, they love being involved. And it's turning in, because of the rest of the industry, it's turning into a job and not a career based on the demands of the market, at least for the rest of the industry. Here, Baxter is and they're doing okay, but obviously, in order to be even more competitive, if they weren't paying the same wages, they could be even more competitive and do even better for themselves. But it just stands the point. It kind of reminds me of that Stephen Covey book, that The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. P and PC, like, are you gonna chase the golden egg and destroy the goose? Like, why do you think you're doing so well in a market that's crashing all around you? And just go after more money because you're in a great position, but really it's the union that's making it work and putting their necks out on the line. Even though like the safety quality has gone down and then the incentive program's gone, everyone's been working really hard for the last 5 years just trying to get things up. So that's really what it comes down to. And to be honest, even though I'm on the side of the union, I can see how it's unrealistic, I think, to ask for a pay raise, but I definitely don't think that if there is going to be a pay cut, it should be much. Like, I really don't think the wages should go below $10. I mean, these people have been here for forever. They're working. They know the system. They've been training. And I think that for where they've gotten the company to, I don't think that that's unrealistic for the company as a whole. But I'm definitely open to bouncing that around because ultimately we need to pick a wage so we can read the end notes.
Well, then, yeah, I agree that telling people that they're going to learn less per hour is going to be a significant hit. So I can see how that would be incredibly difficult to go from $2 that $2 difference. So I think. I don't know, are there any concessions that we can make on the bonus side, on the incentive side, on the benefit side that would impact the wages?
I think that if we were to work out some way to offer, like if the wage is going to decrease because that seems to be the way that we're going, but the company is still making money. So if there's still some profitability, then why wouldn't there be some, even if it's a smaller bonus or incentive for meeting production quotas and, having any type of profitability, that they should reinstate that, not in such a big capacity that it was prior. I mean, 200% is a lot ridiculous, but
especially when they're already getting paid an extra $2 in the average of the industry. But
right.
I think that's what we need to focus on is how can we reintroduce an incentive program. Like maybe since safety's become such a big issue, we can somehow include if we can keep injuries and safety situations at a certain level that's acceptable, that's to the industry average, maybe below the industry average, that certain incentives are brought into play or bonuses as a minor factor involved, of course, not as the major one.
So one thought that I had was, what if we were because like Nick said, legally we could reduce and we could go to arbitration and reduce the pay to $8.20 an hour, but as a show of good faith, if we reduced the wages to $9.50 an hour, but then on top of that added a profitability bonus, so depending on the profitability of the company, a certain percentage of that would be allocated to bonuses for all employees.
Yeah, I think that that's
So
kind of the direction that they want to go in. I think that for our stance, I think that we were on a what did he call it? No concessions.
No
That's
concessions, but I think that I think it's kind of hard to go back in time in these kind of things because we know that the 80s was kind of it was a really hard time for manufacturing. So in order to survive, they really need to make concessions. Like you have to. And so you can't be.
especially when we're talking about avoiding something like a strike and people losing jobs and us wanting to repair our relationship as well.
Right.
So
I mean, I think
Not
that
to mention
because
the
it's such a
strike will void the contract that exists now.
Right.
Because that's part of the contract is that the union wouldn't strike. So going on strike, you lose the concessions of the 52-week layover
but
notice.
the contract's about to expire anyways, and we know that the entire thing is
It's kind of
void.
hinging on a precipice.
Yeah, like you guys already bought barbed wire.
What?
You
Ooh.
spent $80,000 on barbed wire, according
That's
to
news to
our
us.
study.
Right. So you guys are anticipating that the union will strike. The union is ready. They're really ready to go, but I really feel like we can negotiate through this.
The union
The
hired
union doesn't really
public
want to
relations as well.
Yeah, I think that more than anything, everyone's just trying to cover their bases. I think that the entire reason that you guys legally could change the wage is because the union slipped up. And so I think that they're just really trying to be thorough this time around.
Yeah.
But I think that the point is that we are doing well compared to the rest of the industry. We're obviously getting paid way more than the industry, but the company's still profitable, so it's about finding a middle ground.
But part of that profitability comes from the actual plant itself. It's not that the workers are working harder, it's that the plant is more productive. The equipment, the technology, the investment that Baxter has made has improved how quickly you can do the work. It's not that the laborers themselves are working harder, because it's actually their jobs are, for the most part, are easier.
Well, that's why there's like how many more injuries than the rest of the industry combined? Like, it's not easier. It's definitely more dangerous. It's obviously more automated, but it's not easier. But I can see what you're saying, that the technology is making us more productive and there's more utilization going on. But you have to have somebody to man those, and it just depends on what kind of relationship you want with your workers.
Nicole, you were going to say something. What were you going to say?
Never mind.
Sorry,
Are
I
you
didn't
sure?
mean to talk over you.
Yeah, sorry. You have the floor, Nicole.
I was just gonna say that out of every 100 employees, there's 202 injuries.
Yeah.
So that means each person's getting hurt at least 2 times. I think that's kind of crazy.
I don't think we had access to that information.
I think they were hoping that we like turned on each other. Like this was supposed to be this ugly thing, but we're all getting hurt. Yeah, but that was straight out of the text. Thanks, Nicole. For every 100 employees, there's 202 injuries. Is our average going on right now?
And part of that in our reading directed that that's actually, or some of the senior management feels that is related to very liberal workman compensation laws in the state where Baxter is located, because it allows employees to receive 100% of their wages while they're home recovering from their injuries.
But it doesn't talk about how thorough the injuries are. I mean, this could be something as minor as like cutting your finger on the meat filler or whatever. But I think the point is that in our reading, we heard that the only thing that Baxter's done about this huge injury incident rate is they've sent out brochures on safety, when really they don't know the technology, they don't know the machines, and they're setting all of these guidelines on how they want the work done. But they're not doing anything to really prevent the injuries. Like, you're not going to, I don't even know what could be in a brochure that could help curb that incident rate without the workers somehow being involved in setting policy, especially since they're the ones manning them. So there needs to be a balance there with trusting your workers to maybe not necessarily completely revamp the entire work plan, but to create some kind of safety regulation so that we can get back down underneath the industry average. I don't know though. Do we pick a wage?
I
We should
think
probably.
somebody said 950.
Are we good with that, ladies? Are we good with 950 with some kind of incentive on productivity goals that we hit?
Yes.
So do
So-
we need to specify the exact productivity incentive plan
I
for
think
the
we
contract?
do.
Because I don't think they really gave us any numbers. Do we want to like
No.
throw a percentage at it? Because before it talked about how we were getting like almost 200%, like they could make their entire paycheck again with the incentives, and I think that that is excessive. I think that incentives aren't necessarily there to do that. But how do you feel, Brianne?
I agree that making it so that it's almost twice your wage might have worked in the early 70s. Obviously, they got rid of it in the late 70s, so it definitely is not going to work in the 80s. Because the nature of where the industry is headed. So, if they continue to operate and have profits, then it should be like I don't know how to put a percentage on that because I don't really know how to. I don't know. Sorry.
So I think that I'm just kind of typing this out. So if we have a wage reduction at $9.50 an hour, then what we can do is provide a profitability bonus that will ensure you the same rate up to $10.69 an hour, as long as the company sustains current trends in profitability.
I would agree with that because that gives management a way to say, hey, we're not meeting our profitability. We're not meeting the same profits as we were prior, but we can still, if we are having a good profit quarter, then the workers get their pay that they had prior.
I think that is definitely more than fair because as much as our documents kept saying that we are profitable, that we're doing well in the market, it really doesn't mean that we're doing as well as we were before. And you really do have to take that into account. I think that's one thing they really cut out of this. It's very biased in the readings. Is that if they care about this place that they work so much, you should really want your workplace to do well. It doesn't always reflect back on you.
Well, and this plant is deeply connected with the town. 75% of the people have a job in that town because of this plant. So if the plant doesn't stay profitable, if the plant goes bankrupt, everybody fails. Everybody loses. Yeah. So yes, you need to give some concessions on wages so that we can remain profitable. Because we're profitable now, but that could change down the road. We're in the middle of a recession. Who knows what's going to happen? Numerous companies have already had to declare bankruptcy in our same industry. Mm-hmm. So just because the wave hasn't hit us yet doesn't mean it won't. So if you want to protect your job for the next generation of Baxter employees, your kids, then you need to give concessions now for us so that we can keep this place going.
No, it makes sense. So I feel like we've really nailed out the wage portion. We still have, we've already been doing this for an hour.
Have we really? Holy cow.
Yeah, it's like 11:30, almost here, 11:25. So just for the next few minutes, we do have to figure out the rest of the contract. And he says that this should take us about 15 minutes to do. To negotiate.
So what are we figuring out, like benefits?
So benefits, it also talked about, hang on, let me get into my other, we need to talk about the safety concerns, hang on.
And the work rules.
Yes, work rules.
Mm-hmm. Also, Baxter has on the table that they want to talk about layoffs and rehiring.
Oh, the 52-week
Yeah,
layoff rule.
We really want to keep the 52-week layoff rule.
That's so important because if you give them, let's say, even half of a year, a lot of people can't find another job in that amount of time, especially when they're from such a small town as where Baxter is located.
So the only problem with that I can see is that what if the industry tanks and we don't have a year to give that notice? Like, let's say that we find out we've got 6 months of cash left.
Right.
Then all of a sudden we're having to declare bankruptcy and everyone's out of a job anyway.
I totally
Yeah.
see that, and I think that while there needs to be some sort of lead time on the amount of like 6 months, I realize that that's still difficult for people to find jobs, but it's if we can't turn the company around, these layoffs will occur. So we have 6 months to turn this company around. Either we do it or we don't. So if they don't, you can't. If they let the company go, then everybody loses their job, not just the people that were slated for layoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So what I wish that they had listed more of like what the industry average is. Like, so what's a good lead time for layoffs? Like 90 days?
It's gotten less and less. So
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of companies don't give a whole lot of warning, at least nowadays that I know of. But Baxter's willing to give some sort of notice. It doesn't say in the reading how long that notice is, but they want to totally get rid of the 52-week because for that, like Keith was saying, it's just way too much of you're paying people to do nothing if we have no work coming in.
Well, and the other point is that if the union's main thing is that this is like their livelihood. This was how their parents worked here. That they worked so hard for this working relationship. And I feel like by saying that you demand a 52-week layoff notice, that almost sounds selfish, and that the kind of a double standard for priorities. And so we just have to decide what's fair, what's in the best interest for the union and for Baxter. So give us a number.
What do you think, Keith? What would be a good number to shoot out there? I'm thinking 6 to 8
this
weeks.
is almost too long, but I'd be willing to do that. You said 6 to 8 weeks. So you're going from 52 weeks, then you cut it down to 6 to 8.
Brian, you're
So
breaking
that-
up pretty bad.
You're breaking up
If
pretty
you-
bad, Bree.
Okay.
I think I don't know. Going from 52 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks.
That's a big jump.
That's pretty huge. I'd say 4 to 6 months would be sufficient. I'd like to go as low as 4 months. I think 4 months is good because that's 4 months notice plus, depending on how things are. I mean, we can always offer a severance package as well that could buy you a little bit more time. So at 4 months notice, you start looking, and then you'll also get a severance package.
Okay.
That could sustain you for another month
Or so. I'd be good with that.
Yeah, that sounds fair. So we're talking 16 weeks plus a severance package then?
Severance package equal to 1 month's pay. So you essentially have a 5-week or 5-month buffer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty good. What do you think, Brianne?
Or
I think we
Nicole.
lost it.
Zach.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I
Okay.
think that sounds really good. So,
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. I think that's more than I expected. But it makes sense just to ease these people out. I also think that maybe this particular contract shouldn't last as long as the other ones do. Obviously, this is like a turning point in the economy, and things are going to change quickly at a volatile atmosphere, and so it might tank. Things might improve, and I think that by the show of good faith of everyone being willing to compromise, that it would be in everyone's best interest to have a shorter contract even so that this isn't necessarily written in stone for the next 7 years or however it is that they do this.
So I think the industry standard was 3 years.
3 years. I guess that's better than
So,
7.
Yeah, I
so
was thinking 7 too.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it's not efficient to do this every, 18 months. But I think, Nick, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think there needs to be a no strike clause put in the contract.
I would agree.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I
I
agree.
think we had that in the last one too. The other thing we need to talk about is work rules and safety concerns.
The safety concerns are crazy. Like 202 out of 100, or 100, 2 and 2. I think that's crazy.
So what do you propose for safety?
Well, the union's view on it is that we have production maxed out, and so things are just going so quickly that there hasn't been any real time for proper training, especially with a lot of the new hires, because I think we hired like 350 people the first year and another 350 people the second year, after building the new facility. So there's just a lot of people that are being trained by what you might call rookies, since they're new to the equipment too. And so what we need to do is, as much as management needs to set a goal for us to hit productivity-wise, and the union needs to find a way to hit it by their own standards or whatever. They just feel like everything's going too fast and they're just pushing production at the risk of all the workers, and so things just need to be slowed down, but to a point where we're still hitting the expectation, I guess, instead of just as much as we can do. That's kind of the gist of what I got from the reading, and so I don't know how to put a number on that. Brianne, do you have any feedback?
I think that. I'm sorry. Where were we at?
Safety. We were talking
safety.
about how the production was going crazy, and they felt
Isn't
that
like 80%? Isn't what am I saying? Like 80%? Something like that. Okay, so either way, we need to decrease the amount of injuries that are happening on the job. So
yeah, you're
really,
right.
we need to
It
figure
says
out
80%.
why. Right, we need to really figure out why these injuries are occurring in the first place. So is it because we've automated so many things? Is it because we've not done any training? Maybe we need to step in and say training needs to occur so that we can increase our safety, and they have to keep production up to a point because that's what's keeping us profitable. So we can't slow down production too much, but it needs to be slowed down a little bit.
In this, it's talking about how the current injury rate strongly suggests that the present pace of the production is so high that it's dangerous, and that we want it to be set at 80% of the current level, and that we want to get paid incentives for anything that's above this. But I think our incentive plan incorporates this, that if the company is profitable, that we'll get paid whatever that incentive is.
So we're decreasing to 80%. That's what we want. We want it to be decreased to.
And we think that'll help with the injuries and help improve work rules. And at the same time, we're not going to ask for an extra incentive plan because we feel like the incentive plan you guys already laid down reflects that we still have to be profitable at an 80% production target.
So Keith, if you correct me, just in the reading, it seemed like because of the dynamics of how the new plant operates, you've got multiple people working on multiple lines, multiple pieces of equipment. It's not like it used to be where somebody packed sausages all day and that's all they did for an 8-hour shift. They could be doing multiple jobs throughout the day, and multiple lines will handle different orders throughout a week, sometimes changing orders 2 and 3 times, so the processes will change within a week, even up to 3 times. So it's really hard to set a production number because production varies week by week. It's not like the old system at the old plant where you could just pick a number and meet it, and then you were either done for the rest of the day, or you could go over the top and get extra money for working even harder. It doesn't seem like that is very realistic in this new situation with the new plant.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and that's kind of confusing to me because it seems like we're not involved at all with what the orders are or what the quotas are. That you guys just have the on switch on and everyone goes like little ants. And before with the old plant, we were given what the orders were and what the quotas were we had to meet, and we designated the tasks out. We made sure the work got done, and then there was incentive pay to make sure that that happened and that we were ahead of schedule. So obviously, we know that the old incentive plan isn't going to work. But obviously, business has always been good when we were involved with the planning process. I'm not saying we need to have total control, but it seems really silly to have experienced people that are used to this work setting. I mean, maybe not these particular machines, but this work setting and not having them involved. That seems like a broken part of communication.
So the flip side of that is at the old plant, you would have people, once production numbers were set, that you would have people loafing around. So you'd be paying people their wages when they'd already met the production goal for the day and they were done and they didn't have to do anymore, and so they'd kind of slow down and slack off. So that's the fear of the incentive program, or even having a, not incentive, but of having a set target for the day.
I'm not even talking about a set target. I'm talking about communication with knowing what the orders are and what we have to meet. I'm not talking about slacking off. We're talking about that the production rate right now is dangerous and that we're only getting a worse reputation for our injury rate. I don't know where OSHA is on meat packing facilities, but obviously that's not where anybody wants to be in any industry. And so what we're saying is we want better communication to know what the jobs are, when they have to be done by, and how we can adjust the workflow, maybe not even for the job, maybe for the month, whatever it is, so that it's a consistent rate, but that it's more doable, safer, better for morale. Everyone feels like they're working harder on the union side and getting paid less and about to get paid less, because here we are, we've been on a wage freeze, and there's obviously inflation stuff going on with the recession over the last 5 years. So we may not have gotten a pay cut, but with inflation it kind of seems like it. And now we're going to take an actual wage cut, and they still feel like they're being overworked. So there needs to be not necessarily even compromise, but at least better communication as to where there can be some give and take there. Any ideas, anyone?
I think we could look at the line efficiency and see if we can keep everyone dedicated to a specific production line. That keeps the rate of change down, which could limit the amount of people, getting out of a certain habit. That could work.
Okay.
That might actually help
Sounds like a good
reduce
start.
injuries as well. Just because familiarity, the more familiar you are with more accustomed to working on a piece of equipment you are, the less likely it is that you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also feel like there should just be better communication. I don't think that by telling people when jobs need to be done, it ensues laziness. I feel like if that's the work environment, then obviously those aren't the kind of people you want to be rewarding, I guess. And that's not the kind of reputation that the union wants either. But it just seems... Go ahead, Brian.
No, finish your thought and then I'll go.
I'm beating a dead horse. I'm going in circles. Go ahead.
Okay. Another thing I was thinking with the whole work rules is that some of the union workers feel like when it comes to safety or it comes to how the production is being run, that they aren't asked by management how they could help improve it. That they're just told, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. There's no input from the employees on how we could increase production. So with our increased communications, input from the people that actually work the line might help reduce the amount of injuries that were happening as well as increased production, just by increasing that level of communication between, line staff and management.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to say. You rock. So, guys.
No, I definitely think that the union workers should be able to have a say. I don't know, maybe uh, I guess we don't have a lot of the information for this scenario to understand what their roles and positions are. But maybe we put a committee together that has executive level plus union representation. To go over, every month, go over the previous month's production and safety and all that stuff, and actually take their input, because since they're on the floor, they're in there day in, day out, they probably have some very good ideas on how things should be done.
Awesome.
Nicole, did you have a thought?
No, not really. Sorry, I have a really bad migraine right now. So I'm listening and thinking.
That's okay. I saw your picture come up, and I want to make sure I wasn't speaking over you. Yeah, no, I definitely think that improved communication. I think let's have a production review meeting every month to go over the previous months, and then let the workers that are actually doing it figure out what would work better for them. We shouldn't be doing a top-down management if we're not there on the floor ourselves.
Brilliant. I think that covers all the main issues for the contract. Am I right?
I think you're right.
The only one that I still remember was that the rehiring after a layoff.
Oh, see, that wasn't on ours.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We really didn't go over that. We were just concerned about the 52-week. We weren't increasing or decreasing any of that.
Okay, so the only other thing for Baxter that I read was they want to have more say in who they rehire. So because right now it gives the union members full your first dibs on any new jobs that open after a layoff, and they want, I think it was like 50% max on that. So instead of giving the old union guys that have worked at Baxter 100% of the first dibs, they only want to give them a shot at half the jobs.
Well, my main concern with that is, why wouldn't you want the union workers back if they know the machines and they know the procedures? Like, it seems like you'd be saving money on retraining and everything. Like, I feel like it would only be in your interest to do that if you were trying to get away from the union mentality. But if we can make this work and we're willing to compromise, shouldn't you want the people there that already know the job?
True, but if you're also bringing back people that have grudges and are kind of the instigators of dissent.
Yeah, but we're already showing that we have good faith and that we're willing to compromise, Nick. Look at us. We're taking wage cuts.
Great.
We're signing up so that we're not going to strike.
You guys are going to get hung when you walk outside, too.
Yeah, well, they're all of our brothers and uncles and stuff, so we'll
There you
just
go.
not buy each other Christmas presents this year. Okay, it's because we had wage cuts. But
Yeah.
I think that really, unless you guys had a great mentality besides that you could be hiring back people with grudges, just because you have to give people that worked there first choice doesn't mean you have to take the ones that have grudges. Like, if management knows the people on their staff, they can always choose the ones that didn't have attitude problems, that are still trained and still know the procedures and the dynamic of the line work itself. It seems like it'd be a double standard that you guys are avoiding union workers and at the same time want to pay more to train. So do you guys have another reason you would want to have 50% of that?
I think it's mainly just to get rid of, quote unquote, the rabble,
And see,
from what I read.
you don't want to get rid of the union because we're really awesome workers and we're
No,
really
it's not
willing to
the
compromise.
it's not the
You're really
union so
expensive.
much. Yeah, and expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. But we're not going anywhere. So it's not like that as soon as you hire someone that's not part of the union, we're just going to assimilate them anyways. So you pay more. Because, I mean, as soon as someone's part of this company that that shows that they're taking care of people, they're going to rally on that because they want to protect their own interests as well. So you can either find somebody new and pay to train them, and then we'll assimilate them, or you could just pick somebody out of the pool that already came in and save money and maybe choose between the ones that have better attitudes.
So I would say as long as Baxter retains the right to not hire those that they deem unfit, I guess, because if you've got 150 openings and you've got 100 employees that have been laid off, by the current contract, you have to give those 100 employees 100 of those jobs and then hire 50 new people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So my thing with that is,
you don't want to hire 5 of those that are troublemakers and are stirring the pot, so to speak, then
but if you have people that are troublemakers and are stirring the pot, shouldn't we be like writing them up and doing like disciplinary stuff? So are they getting laid off by chance, or are we dealing with the problems as they come up, and are they getting fired? Are you allowed to fire union people? I've never really been a part of a union, but I think
it's hard.
Often.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I think the main point is that if you cover your bases and you take care of disciplinary issues as they arise, yeah, maybe there should be something in the clause that says that if you've had X amount of reprimands, then you are ineligible for rehire. Like, you know? But I think that the point is that if we deal with disciplinary stuff as they arise, that they shouldn't be getting laid off, they should be getting fired. Right?
Okay.
Brianne, tell me.
Yep, I'm sorry, my kids are trying to go to bed. So the only time I've ever had to deal with the union was when they tried to come in to my building. So that's the only time. And I was management, so I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't give my opinion about it. I wasn't going to be a part of it because I was management. So as I understand it, the union would negotiate for the person who is getting fired. So it's just a longer process. Doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get fired. It just means that it takes longer to get a bad egg out.
Okay, so are we good with we want to retain 100% of the rehire possibilities, but union workers that we need to pick a number of reprimands.
If the person is on, I think if the person is on any sort of disciplinary action at the time of the layoff, where, like, say it's 4 reprimands and they're on disciplinary watch or action, that management does have the right not to rehire, like what you were talking about. So let's say 4, because I think 5's a little excessive. I think 4 is fair. Verbal, written, something or other and something or other. And then if they are laid off, then they have the right to not rehire.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you guys find that that's fair?
I think 4 is a little excessive, but
I agree.
I'm kind of being a hard nose on this one.
Well, I agree that while I agree, I have also been in the position of an employee that's had reprimands that didn't necessarily weren't necessarily my fault. So I think 4, like, it was a group reprimand and my name was on it. Dang it. So I think that 4 is fair if they're, I think 4 is fair.
I also think that you guys may. I think that the point of like the status of them too, like there may be employees that you like, that it is a group thing. So maybe 3's it might be a fair number because there's still going to be an interview type review process, right, for these when you're rehiring after a layoff, and you can say, well, hey, I liked this person even though that was the status, and you can reserve the right to not rehire, but that it puts you in a position where you may not be eligible. Does that make sense?
What about doing it so, like, if it's just your reprimand? Because sometimes I agree with Brienne. Sometimes it's a group reprimand, and those are really stupid because you didn't do anything wrong. So if you just look at what they did specifically, is that better or no?
No, because I feel like sometimes the only way you get some of the worst employees is in group reprimands. Not saying anything against you, Brian, because I've been caught in that same loophole. But sometimes some of the problems that you want to weed out, the easiest way to get the write-ups done are group write-outs, and just it kind of affects the whole team. So it would, I think 3 is a fair number, and it doesn't mean that you won't get rehired, but that Baxter reserves the right to determine whether or not you're eligible.
Yeah.
And if you made a good impression and they knew you were a good worker, then you don't have anything to worry about. But if you are one of those people that they were like, you are a problem child, we reserve the right to not rehire you, then that's their prerogative, you know?
Right. I think that 100% is. I'm totally taking management's side on this, but I think 100% is a little strict. So I would say
We're divided.
I know. I would say 9, but I think that's 100%. That means like there's no room to change your workforce in any way. That maybe sometimes even if you had union workers and they were great, sometimes you need new faces in for innovation. So I'd say 90%. I mean, that still gives the union a lot of control.
Yeah.
But it gives the company a chance to get some innovation in. And I think that's important for unions too. I mean, they can join the union once they're in. So, I mean, it could really all work out in the end.
Do I hear 75%? 75. Going once, going twice.
I was saying 90, dude. I was giving you 10% here.
I think
Somebody wants 50.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. We know that's not happening.
Yeah, no.
All right, 80. 80. Do I hear 80?
Okay.
Well, wait. So are we doing 80 and on top of the reprimands policy on you may be ineligible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really though, you got so even in your groups of employees in your unions, you know that there's people in there that are not good for the company and not good for your union. So
I
maybe
agree.
you don't want them to come back either.
I wanted to make sure we were still set on a percentage plus.
Yep.
3 reprimands makes you
Not
possibly ineligible for rehire. Okay.
I know we're talking 1983 terms, so I don't know if at will was even a thing back in 1983, but yeah, I think if that was worked into the policy that we reserve the right to to exercise at will.
No, because that's why there's a union in place. The union would step in and then fight for that employee regardless of at will. Changes your at will status because the union will step in and make sure that the firing of that person is fair.
It's like insane how much power unions have. Like, to be honest, I don't really think I'd join one. It seems like a little bit extreme in the workplace,
I would say from the management perspective, unions make it very difficult.
Yeah. I'm like, the more we go over this, the more I'm just like, this is insane. But anyways.
That's for another topic.
Yeah, it is. Let's finish this.
It's like midnight here, so.
I was going to say, I now understand why union contracts take so long.
Yep.
All in favor of 80% and
and the 3 strikes.
eligible.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep. Sounds good.
Sweet. Okay, so let's read the end, right?
Well, so let me recap the terms that I'm getting. So we've got a wage reduction to $9.50 an hour, but we're going to compensate with a profitability bonus that will ensure the same rate at $10.69 an hour as long as the company sustains current profitability trends. We're going to give a 4-month notice for layoffs with a severance package equal to 1 month pay. We're going to do a monthly production and safety committee comprised of executives and union employees to go over production and safety improvements. and then rehire 80% of the workforce
From the union.
from the union, and then exercise the 3-strike rule.
Sounds good.
Yeah, can you email me that? Did you
Yes.
type all that?
I did.
Awesome.
Because you're amazing.
Yeah, I was just thinking I could always go back and listen to the video, but
This is my
long video.
this is project management 101 right here.
There you
Yeah,
go.
love it.
Listen
I'd vote
and
for
type.
you. I could totally work for you, Keith. You're so level-headed and fair.
I'm looking for a project coordinator if you want to move to SoCal.
So tempting,
Nope.
but my husband's so committed here. He's also turning off all the lights, like, wrap this up. Okay, so let's
What my
see.
wife was doing a minute.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in the bedroom today. I hurt my back working out. So we're all good on that. So we just have to really read the D notes, right? Can I turn off the
Yeah.
broadcast for that, or should we do it on air?
No, let's go ahead and turn off. I think we're good. We got the terms and conditions.
Woo woo. Okay.
Yay.